15 mechanics called the cleaner a failure, and she silenced them all. Jessica Miller swallowed the lump in her throat when she heard the laughter coming from the men's locker room at Johnson's auto shop. It was the third Monday in a row that the mechanics had made jokes about her, the 30-year-old woman who mopped the greasy floor while they fixed imported cars. "Look, everyone, the failure is here," said Mike, the shop foreman, pointing at Jessica as she walked in with her bucket and mop. 30 years cleaning up after others. What a success story, huh? The 15 mechanics burst into laughter. Jessica felt her face grow hot, but lowered her head and moved to the first car in line. A silver Mercedes sat with its hood open, waiting for inspection. She dampened her cloth and began wiping around the work area, as she always did. "Hey, Jessica," called Tyler, one of the younger mechanics. "My mum needs a cleaner at home. Want her number? At least there you wouldn't get in the way of real professionals." The others laughed even louder. Jessica clenched the rag tightly but didn't respond. She needed this job. Her mother, Mrs. Barbara, had been hospitalized for 2 weeks with pneumonia, and the insurance didn't cover all the medications. Her cleaning wages paid the household bills and the extra prescriptions. Mike walked over, wiping his hands on a grease-stained rag. "You know what bothers me, guys?" he said, staring straight at Jessica. "Having to put up with people with no ambition. Look at her. No education, no talent, no future, and on top of that, she thinks she knows about cars." Jessica stopped scrubbing the floor. The week before, she had tried to warn them about a brake fluid leak in a Camry, but Mike told her to mind her own business. "I was just trying to help," she murmured. "Help?" Mike let out a bitter laugh. "You don't even know how to change a light bulb, let alone understand an engine. Stay in your lane, Jessica. Clean and keep quiet." George, the oldest mechanic on the team, shook his head discreetly. He was the only one who didn't join in the humiliation, but he never openly defended her either. Jessica knew he was trying to avoid trouble with the boss. "And another thing," Mike continued, raising his voice so everyone could hear, "I want everyone here to understand something. This shop only works because you're all skilled professionals. It's no place for incompetence. Everyone needs to know their place." The words cut like knives. Jessica pretended not to hear and kept cleaning, but a tear rolled down her cheek. She quickly wiped it away with the back of her hand, hoping no one had noticed. Dear listener, if you're enjoying this story, please take a moment to like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps those of us just starting out. Now, back to the story. The rest of the morning passed slowly. Jessica cleaned every corner of the shop, organized the tools the mechanics left scattered, and swept the entire outdoor area. During lunch, when everyone had left, she stayed behind to check for any remaining mess. That's when she noticed something odd about the silver Mercedes. A dark stain was forming beneath the car, near the right front wheel. Jessica crouched down and saw it was brake fluid leaking from the master cylinder. That car had been approved for release that morning with an inspection sticker. She looked around. Everyone was out for lunch. Jessica grabbed a flashlight from the workbench and examined it more closely. The leak was small but steady. In a week, maybe 2, the brake system could fail completely. "I have to say something," she whispered to herself. When the mechanics returned from lunch, Jessica waited for Mike to finish talking to a customer before approaching. "Mike, can I talk to you for a minute?" He looked at her irritably. "What is it now, Jessica?" "It's about the silver Mercedes. There's a brake fluid leak in the master cylinder. It's dangerous." Mike stopped shuffling the papers and stared at her. The other mechanics gathered around, curious. "Are you telling me how to do my job?" he asked in a low, threatening voice. "No, I just noticed it was leaking and—" "Listen here, you ignorant!" Mike raised his voice, making everyone in the shop stop and look. "This car was inspected by Brian, who has 15 years of experience. You think he wouldn't spot a brake issue?" Brian, a dark-haired man in his 40s, crossed his arms and shook his head. "You're kidding, right, Jessica? I tested this car myself. Brakes are perfect. But I saw fluid dripping." "What you saw was condensation from the AC," Mike interrupted. "Of course a janitor would get confused, right, guys?" The 15 mechanics laughed. Some muttered things Jessica couldn't quite make out, but their tone made it clear they were jokes at her expense. "Now listen carefully," Mike said. jabbing a finger in her face. "I don't want you sticking your nose into technical work. Your job here is to clean, that's it. If I find out you've been bothering customers or spouting nonsense about cars, you're fired on the spot. Understood?" Jessica nodded, her cheeks burning with shame. Everyone was staring at her like she was a child being scolded. "Understood or not?" Mike pressed. "Understood," she whispered. "Good. Now get back to work and let the professionals handle the cars." Jessica picked up her bucket and walked away. Behind her, she heard Mike loudly remarking to the others, "Can you believe that? A janitor trying to teach us about cars. This is why people don't get anywhere in life. They don't know their place." The laughter continued for minutes. Jessica locked herself in the bathroom and cried silently. When she'd calmed down, she splashed cold water on her face and returned to work. She needed that job no matter how humiliating it was. That afternoon, every time she passed the Mercedes, she discreetly glanced at the floor. The oil stain had grown. She was certain it was brake fluid. It had that distinct smell and consistency. But she couldn't say another word. At the end of the shift, the owner of the Mercedes arrived to pick up his car. He was an elegant man in his 50s named Dr. Richard. Jessica watched from a distance as Mike explained the services performed. "Your car's in perfect shape, Doctor," Mike said with a broad smile. "Full inspection, all fluids checked, brakes tested. You're good to go." Dr. Richard nodded and signed the paperwork. Jessica bit her lip, torn between fear of losing her job and concern for the man's safety. When he got in the car and started the engine, she decided she couldn't stay silent. She ran to the curb and waved at Dr. Richard, who was already pulling out of the spot. Sir, wait." He stopped the car and rolled down the window. "Yes?" Jessica glanced back and saw Mike storming toward them with a scowl. It's about the brakes. There's a leak in the master cylinder. It's not safe to drive like this." Dr. Richard looked surprised. "What do you mean? The mechanic just told me everything was fine." "I know, but..." Jessica started to explain, but Mike cut her off. "Jessica, what are you doing?" "Mike, you'd better double-check the brakes on this car," Dr. Richard said, stepping out of the Mercedes. "This young woman says there's a leak." Mike turned red with anger. "Doctor, I apologize for the inconvenience. This is our janitor and sometimes she gets confused. Doesn't know a thing about cars. Even so, I'd like you to take another look." Jessica's stomach churned as she saw the murderous glare Mike shot her, but Dr. Richard had already made up his mind. "Brian!" shouted Mike. "Come here quick." Brian approached, clearly annoyed at having to redo his work. "What's the problem?" The cleaner is saying there's a brake leak." Brian sighed and crouched down to look under the car. Jessica saw his expression change. He stood up slowly, looking like he'd seen something unexpected. "Mike, there really is brake fluid leaking." The silence that followed was awkward. Dr. Richard looked at Jessica with gratitude and concern. "How long could this have lasted before causing an accident?" he asked. Brian swallowed hard. "A week, maybe 2, depending on use." "I have a trip planned for tomorrow, 3 hours on the road." The gravity of the situation hit everyone like a bomb. Jessica had prevented a potentially fatal accident. "Doctor, we'll fix this right away," said Mike, trying to regain control. "At no extra cost, of course." "I hope so. And I want to thank this young lady." Dr. Richard turned to Jessica. "What's your name?" "Jessica Miller." "Jessica, thank you for having the courage to tell me. You may have saved my life." Jessica felt her eyes well up, but this time with positive emotion. I just couldn't let you leave knowing there was a problem." Dr. Richard took a $50 bill from his wallet and offered it to her. "Here, it's a small token of gratitude. You don't have to, Doctor. I just did what I thought was right. I insist." Jessica accepted the money, knowing every penny would help with her mother's medicine. After Dr. Richard left, leaving the car for repairs, Mike turned to Jessica with contained fury. "In my office. Now." Jessica followed him, her legs shaking. Along the way, she heard the 15 mechanics whispering, some seeming genuinely surprised she'd spotted the issue. Mike slammed the office door shut. "You embarrassed me in front of an important client." "Mike, I was just trying to prevent an accident. I don't care. I told you not to meddle in technical matters. You disobeyed a direct order. But I was right. The leak... I don't care if you were right or wrong, Nut, he yelled. I want to know why you didn't respect me when I told you to stay in your place. Jessica felt the injustice like a punch to the gut. She'd saved a man from a possible accident and was being scolded for it. I'm sorry, but I couldn't let him leave knowing the danger. Listen here, Jessica. You're already on thin ice. One more stunt like this and you're fired. And don't think you'll get a job at another shop after I tell everyone your trouble. The threat was like a bucket of cold water. Jessica knew Mike was well connected with every shop owner in the area. If he badmouthed her, finding another job would be tough. I understand, and I hope you do. Now get back to work and remember your place here. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us newcomers. Now continuing, Jessica left the office with her head down. On her way back to the work area, she caught fragments of the mechanics' conversations. Some seemed impressed by her ability to spot the issue, while others kept their dismissive attitude. Got lucky, said one. Even a broken clock is right twice a day. Yeah, but the fact is she saw it and we didn't, replied another. Jessica pretended not to hear and went back to her routine. She grabbed a bucket, filled it with soapy water, and began cleaning the area where Brian was working on Dr. Richard's Mercedes. Jessica, called George, the oldest mechanic, in a low voice. Can you come here for a second? She approached. George was organizing the tools on the workbench, his back turned to the others. How did you know it was a brake fluid leak? He asked without looking at her. I recognized the oil. It has a different color and smell from engine oil. That's true, but how did you learn that? Jessica hesitated. Telling the truth could cause even more problems, but George seemed genuinely curious. My dad worked with cars. He taught me a few things when I was a kid. It wasn't exactly a lie, but it wasn't the whole truth either. George nodded. Was your dad a mechanic? He tried to open his own auto shop. It didn't work out. I see. Well, here's a tip. Better not talk too much about that to the others. You saw how Mike reacted. I know. Thanks, George. He gave a slight nod and went back to work. Jessica kept cleaning, but her mind was racing. It had been a long time since she'd thought about her father, William Miller, who had passed away when she was 22. He really did work with cars, but not as a hobby. William was a mechanical engineer who graduated from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and so was Jessica. She had graduated at 21 with one of the highest grades in her class. During her 4 years of college, she worked part-time at an auto shop to pay for her studies, and that's where she learned the practical side of automotive mechanics. Her father encouraged her, saying she'd be the first woman in the family with a college degree, but life took a different turn. William had a sudden heart attack a week after her graduation. Her mother, Mrs. Barbara, fell into deep depression, and Jessica had to take care of everything: the funeral, debts, her mother's psychological treatment. The money they'd saved for her to pursue a master's degree was used to pay for medications and doctor visits. Jessica tried to get a job as an engineer, but the economic crisis was at its peak. Companies wanted experienced professionals, and she only had her degree and a few internships. After 6 months of sending out resumes with no response, she took the first job that came up, a janitor at an office. For 8 years, she cleaned offices, buildings, stores. When Mrs. Barbara got better and went back to work as a seamstress, Jessica managed to get by with just the job at the auto shop. It was closer to home, and the hours were better for taking care of her mother, who was already 67. But she never told anyone about her degree. The first time she tried to get an engineering job after 3 years as a janitor, she was humiliated in an interview. The interviewer laughed in her face when he saw her resume, asked if it was a joke, and said someone who spends 3 years cleaning must not be cut out for anything else. Since then, Jessica decided to keep it a secret. It was less painful to be seen as an uneducated janitor than as a failed engineer. That Wednesday, Jessica arrived at the shop and found an odd atmosphere. The mechanics were quieter than usual, and Mike seemed nervous. She found out why when she saw Dr. Richard talking to a man in a suit. "Jessica," Dr. Richard called when he saw her. "Come here, please." She approached, noticing everyone in the shop was paying attention to the conversation. "Jessica, this is Dr. Thompson, owner of the Thompson Motors chain. He's a personal friend of mine." Dr. Thompson was a tall man, around 60, with graying hair and an imposing presence. He greeted her with a firm handshake. "Jessica, Eduardo told me what happened on Monday. You identified a problem the mechanics overlooked." "It was just a coincidence," she said, embarrassed. "It was no coincidence," Dr. Richard said. "You knew exactly what you were looking at. How did you learn about mechanics?" Jessica glanced briefly at Mike, who was listening with a stern expression. "My dad taught me a few things." "What kind of things?" asked Dr. Thompson. "Like identifying different types of oil, recognizing strange engine noises, those basic things." Dr. Thompson nodded thoughtfully. "Richard told me you were very brave to warn him, even knowing you could get in trouble for it. I couldn't let him leave in danger." "Exactly, and that shows character." Dr. Thompson turned to Mike. "Mike, can I speak with you privately?" The two walked away, and Jessica stayed with Dr. Richard. She could see Mike gesturing and Dr. Thompson shaking his head with a serious expression. "Jessica," Dr. Richard said quietly, "have you ever thought about working directly with mechanics?" The question caught her off guard. I don't have the training for that." "But you have natural talent, and talent can be developed." Before Jessica could respond, Dr. Thompson and Mike returned. Mike's face was red, and he avoided looking at her. "Jessica," Dr. Thompson said, "I'd like to make you an offer. I own 5 auto shops in the area, and I'm always looking for people with potential. How about you take a test at one of my locations?" Jessica's heart raced. "A test?" "Nothing too complicated. Identify some basic problems, show what you know. If you do well, I can offer you a position as a mechanic's assistant. The pay would be 3 times what you make here." Jessica felt the ground disappear beneath her feet. 3 times more? That would mean being able to afford better health insurance for her mother, maybe even the surgeries she'd been putting off. I accept," she said, trying to control her excitement. "Great. Here's my card. Call me tomorrow to work out the details." After Dr. Thompson and Dr. Richard left, Mike called Jessica into the office again. "Did you tell them you have technical training?" "No. I just said my dad taught me a few things." "Good. Because if I find out you made up stories to promote yourself, you'll regret it." "Mike, I didn't make anything up. And another thing, while you work here, you answer to me. That test he offered might not lead anywhere, and you'll still need this job." Jessica nodded, but inside she was thrilled. For the first time in 8 years, someone had recognized her ability. The next day, Jessica called Dr. Thompson and scheduled the test for Saturday morning. For the rest of the week, she could barely focus at work. The mechanics noticed her change in mood and made snide remarks. "Look at that, the janitor's dreaming big," said Tyler. "Bet she'll fail that test and come back with her tail between her legs." "Yeah," another agreed. "Getting lucky once doesn't mean you know anything." Mike didn't comment directly, but Jessica felt his disapproving gaze whenever she passed by. George, on the other hand, seemed genuinely curious about her chances. "Jessica, can I give you some advice?" he said on Friday when they were alone in the tool area. "Of course. If you really know mechanics, don't let them intimidate you. Show what you know without fear." "Thank you, George. That means a lot." "And Jessica, your dad taught you more than you let on, didn't he?" She looked at him in surprise. "Why do you say that?" "Because I've worked with cars for 30 years. I can tell when someone really knows their stuff. What you did with the Mercedes wasn't luck." Jessica wanted to tell him the truth, but she still didn't have the courage. "My dad was special," was all she could say. "Must have been a great teacher." On Saturday morning, Jessica woke up at 5. She showered, put on her best clothes, and left the house before her mother woke up. Mrs. Barbara still didn't know about the test. Jessica didn't want to get her hopes up in case it didn't work out. Dr. Thompson's auto shop was in a more upscale part of town. It was much bigger and more organized than Johnson's auto shop. When Jessica arrived, she found Dr. Thompson talking to a man around 40 years old who introduced himself as Dave, the technical manager. "Jessica, how are you? Dr. Thompson asked with a smile. Nervous, she admitted. That's normal. Let's start with something simple. Dave led her to a workbench where several engine parts were scattered. First question, identify these parts and tell me the function of each one. Jessica took a deep breath. It was easy. Crankshaft, piston, connecting rod, valves, water pump. She identified them all correctly and explained their functions with technical precision. Dave and Dr. Thompson exchanged surprised glances. Very good, Dave said. Now, I want you to listen to these engines and tell me if there's any problem. They took her to 3 cars with their engines running. In the first, Jessica identified a noise in the valve system. In the second, she recognized the sound of worn bearings. The third was normal. Impressive, Dr. Thompson murmured. Now for the toughest test, Dave said. This car has a problem we've taken to 2 different mechanics. Neither could figure it out. You have 1 hour to find what's wrong. It was a blue Toyota Camry, identical to the one Mrs. Barbara dreamed of owning. Jessica popped the hood and began examining it systematically. She checked the fluids, tested the fuel pump pressure, inspected the electrical system. After 40 minutes, she found the issue, a small crack in the vacuum hose that was causing an air leak in the intake system. It was hard to detect because the crack only opened when the engine was hot. Here, she said, showing the hose to Dave. This crack is causing a lean mixture. That's why the engine stalls at idle when it's hot. Dave examined the hose with a magnifying glass and shook his head in amazement. That's exactly it. How did you figure it out? The engine only stalled at idle and only when hot. That pointed to an air-fuel mixture issue. Since the fuel pump pressure was normal, it had to be an air leak. Dr. Thompson stepped closer. Jessica, where did you learn all this? The question she feared had come. Jessica looked at the 2 men who seemed genuinely impressed and interested. She made a decision. I have a degree in mechanical engineering from MIT. The silence that followed was long. Dave's eyes widened. You're an engineer? I am. I graduated 8 years ago. Then why are you working as a cleaner? Dr. Thompson asked. Jessica told them the whole story. The struggle to find a job after graduation, the need to care for her mother, the years spent cleaning. The more she spoke, the more she noticed the 2 men looking at her with respect and understanding. I completely understand, Dr. Thompson said when she finished. The job market was tough back then, and you did what you had to do to take care of your family. But now you can start fresh, Dave said. With your knowledge and hands-on experience, you'd be a valuable addition to our team. Dr. Thompson nodded. Jessica, I'd like to offer you a position as a junior mechanical engineer at one of my shops. Starting salary of $6,000, full health coverage for you and your mother, and room for quick advancement. Jessica's legs felt weak. $6,000 was more than 5 times what she made at Johnson's auto shop. Dr. Thompson, I don't know what to say. Say yes, he smiled. You start Monday. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing, Jessica left Thompson Motors walking on air. For the first time in 8 years, she felt her life had taken a positive turn. On her way home, she stopped at a flower shop and bought a bouquet of white roses for her mother. Mrs. Barbara was in the kitchen preparing lunch when Jessica arrived. What beautiful flowers, dear. What's the occasion? Jessica sat at the kitchen table and told her mother everything. About Monday's test with the Mercedes, about Dr. Thompson, about today's test. When she mentioned the salary of $6,000, Mrs. Barbara dropped the spoon she was holding. $6,000? Jessica, are you sure? Yes, Mom, and we both get health insurance. Mrs. Barbara began to cry, tears of joy and relief. I always knew you were special, dear. Even as a child, you'd take your toys apart to see how they worked. Do you remember what Dad always said? That you'd be the first doctor in the family. He was right. It just took a little longer than expected. They spent the rest of the day talking about their plans. Mrs. Barbara could finally have the gallbladder surgery she'd been putting off for 2 years. Jessica could go back to school. maybe even specialize. For the first time in a long while, the future looked bright. On Monday, Jessica arrived at Johnson's auto shop to hand in her resignation. She planned to be discreet, speak only to Mike, and leave without causing a scene. But things didn't go as expected. When she walked in, all 15 mechanics were gathered near the main workbench. Mike stood at the center, clearly agitated. "Jessica!" he shouted as soon as he saw her. "Good, you're here. We need to talk." "Mike, I need to talk to you too." "Then say it. Right here in front of everyone." Jessica looked around. They were all staring at her, their expressions ranging from curiosity to hostility. "I came to resign." "Resign?" Mike let out a bitter laugh. "What a coincidence, because I was just about to fire you." Jessica was confused. "What do you mean? Dr. Thompson called me last night, told me you lied about your background." Jessica's heart raced. "I didn't lie about anything." "Oh, really? So you didn't say you learned mechanics from your dad?" "I did, and it's true." "But you forgot to mention you have an engineering degree, huh?" A murmur spread among the mechanics. Jessica saw surprise on some faces, disbelief on others. "I didn't hide anything. You never asked about my education." "Because no one expects an engineer to work as a cleaner," Mike yelled. "You made a fool out of me, Jessica. Made me look like a clown in front of Dr. Thompson." "Mike, I never meant to—" "Shut up. You're a fraud. Played the poor uneducated cleaner when you were really here to spy on me." "Spy? What are you talking about? Dr. Thompson said you're going to work for him. I bet he planted you here to steal our trade secrets." Jessica realized Mike was twisting the facts completely. "That's ridiculous. I've worked here for 2 years. I only met Dr. Thompson last week." "That's your story. But I know Dr. Thompson's always wanted to buy my shop, and now he shows up with a cleaner who just happens to be an engineer." The mechanics started murmuring among themselves. Jessica could see some were buying Mike's version. "Everyone, you've known me for 2 years. Do you really think I'm a spy?" "We don't know you at all," said Brian. "You fooled everyone pretending to be something you're not." "I never pretended anything. You're the ones who assumed I didn't have an education because I work as a cleaner." "Because engineers don't work as cleaners," shouted Tyler. "Unless there's some secret reason." Jessica felt the situation spiraling completely out of control. She was being accused of absurd things, and no one wanted to hear her side. "George," she turned to the oldest mechanic. "You know, I've always been honest with you." George looked at her with an unreadable expression. "I don't know what to think anymore, Jessica. It's really strange that you hid being an engineer." The word hid stung. Jessica realized even George, the only one who had always treated her with respect, was doubting her. "I didn't hide it, I just didn't talk about it because it wasn't relevant to my work here." "Wasn't relevant?" Mike let out a sarcastic laugh. "You're a mechanical engineer, and it wasn't relevant to mention that in an auto shop." Jessica knew any explanation she gave would be twisted against her. The idea that she was a spy had already taken root in everyone's minds. "You know what, Jessica?" said Mike. "I always suspected something was off about you. No one's happy being a cleaner at 30. Now I get why." "Mike, you're making up a conspiracy that doesn't exist." "Am I? Then explain why Dr. Thompson offered you a job the same week you happened to find a problem none of my mechanics noticed." Jessica realized she was in an impossible situation. The more she tried to explain, the guiltier she'd look. "I'm leaving," she said, "but I want you all to know the truth. I never lied to anyone here. You're the ones who never cared to know who I really am." "The only truth," said Mike, "is that you're a liar and a spy, and now the whole town will know." Jessica grabbed her few belongings from the locker and headed for the door. At the exit, she turned one last time. "Mike, you've always humiliated me and treated me like I was beneath you. Now that you found out I have the same degree you've always pretended to have, you're angry. But the truth is, you're a terrible mechanic and an even worse boss." The shop fell completely silent. Jessica saw the shock on everyone's faces. Mike turned red with rage. "Excuse me? You think you can talk to me like that?" "I can, and I am. For 2 years, I've listened to you humiliate everyone here. I've heard you yell at customers when they questioned your work. I've seen you charge for services you didn't perform, and I've watched you threaten to fire anyone who tried to do the job right. You're crazy. Am I? Ask the guys how many times you told them to pretend they replaced parts when they just cleaned the old ones. Ask how many times you said not to mention serious issues so customers wouldn't have to spend more. The mechanics exchanged uncomfortable glances. Jessica was exposing secrets everyone knew but no one spoke about. And you know why I never said I was an engineer? Because I was ashamed to be associated with a shop that cheats customers and treats employees like trash. Oh, and one more thing, Mike. Dr. Thompson didn't plant me here, but he'll be very interested to hear how you run this place. Jessica walked out of the shop under stunned stares. She knew she'd burned every bridge but felt strangely free. For 2 years, she'd swallowed humiliation in silence. Finally, she'd stood up for herself. Outside, she found George waiting for her. Jessica, wait. She stopped. What is it, George? You were right about what you said in there. Mike really does those things. I know, you all know. And you're right about him being angry about your degree. Mike never even finished high school. Everything he knows about mechanics, he learned the hard way. This information surprised Jessica. Really? Really? He inherited the shop from his father, but he's not competent enough to run it. That's why he feels threatened by anyone who shows real knowledge. George, why are you telling me this? Because I like you, Jessica. I always have. And because you didn't deserve what happened back there. Thank you. And I'd like to ask you a favor. What? If you land a good job with Dr. Thompson, and if he needs experienced mechanics, well, I've got 30 years of experience and I'm tired of working in a dishonest place. Jessica smiled for the first time that day. I'll remember you, George. I promise. On Tuesday, Jessica arrived at Dr. Thompson's shop. Dave greeted her and introduced her to her new team. There were 5 mechanics, all older and experienced, and a receptionist named Amanda. Everyone, Dave said. This is Jessica Miller, our new mechanical engineer. She'll be working with us on developing new diagnostic procedures. The mechanics greeted her warmly. There was none of the hostility she was used to at Johnson's auto shop. Jessica, said one of them, introducing himself as Joe. Dave told us about the test you took. Very impressive. Thank you. I hope we can work well together. During her first week, Jessica quickly adapted to the new routine. Her job was to handle complex diagnostics, prepare technical reports for clients, and train the mechanics in new techniques. It was exactly the kind of work she had always dreamed of doing. Dr. Thompson visited the shop twice a week to check on progress. On the Friday of her second week, he called her in for a talk. How are you settling in? Very well. It's a completely different environment from what I was used to. I can imagine. By the way, I got an interesting call yesterday. From who? From Mike at Johnson's auto shop. Jessica's stomach tightened. What did he want? He was trying to warn me about you, said your trouble, that you have a history of causing problems at work. Dr. Thompson, I can explain. No need to explain, he interrupted with a smile. I've known Mike for years. I know exactly the kind of person he is. If he's bad-mouthing you, it's because you must be very good at what you do. Jessica sighed in relief. Besides, Dr. Thompson continued, one of his mechanics reached out to me, George something, said he wants to work here and that you could vouch for him. George is an excellent mechanic and an honest person. I'd highly recommend him. Great. I could actually use another experienced mechanic. The weeks flew by. Jessica settled into her new role and George joined the team a month later. Mrs. Barbara had her gallbladder surgery and made a full recovery. With the health insurance, it didn't cost the family a thing. Jessica also enrolled in a postgraduate course in automotive engineering on Saturdays. For the first time in 8 years, she felt her life was on the right track. But the peace didn't last long. On a Thursday morning, Dr. Thompson arrived at the shop looking worried. Jessica, Dave, come with me. We need to talk. They gathered in the office. We have a problem, Dr. Thompson said. Johnson's auto shop is spreading rumors about us around town. What kind of rumors? Dave asked. Mike's telling everyone we hired an industrial spy, that we're stealing his employees by offering bribes, and that our shop uses counterfeit parts. Jessica felt her blood run cold. Dr. Thompson, that's completely false. I know it's false, but the rumors are working. We've lost 3 major clients this week. What can we do? Asked Dave. For now, nothing. We can't prove the rumors are coming from him, but we need to stay alert. Over the next few weeks, the situation got worse. Thompson Motors lost several customers. Some specifically mentioned the rumors about industrial espionage and counterfeit parts. Jessica felt guilty. She knew the whole situation had started because of her. Dr. Thompson, she said one Friday, I think it's best if I resign. Mike is only doing this because of me. Don't even think about it, he replied firmly. You're the best engineer I've ever hired. I'm not losing you over some jealous car salesman, but the shop is losing customers. And we'll win them all back. Mike can spread rumors, but he can't hide the quality of our work forever. Dr. Thompson was right, but it took time. For 3 months, the shop operated with few customers. Jessica had to accept a temporary pay cut, which was still 3 times what she'd earned as a cleaner. The turnaround began when a customer brought in a problem no other shop in town could fix. It was an imported BMW with an intermittent electrical system failure. The car had been to 5 different shops, including Johnson's Auto Shop, with no success. Jessica spent 2 days analyzing the electrical system and discovered the issue was a control module with a very specific manufacturing defect. It was nearly impossible to detect without specialized equipment and advanced technical knowledge. After the BMW was fixed, the customer told everyone about Thompson Motors' technical expertise. Within weeks, other customers started coming back. Mike tried another dirty tactic. He began offering services at prices well below market rate to steal customers, but the strategy backfired when it became clear he was cutting essential costs to keep prices low. The final blow came when Dr. Richard brought his Mercedes in for service at Dr. Thompson's shop and told several friends about Jessica's skills. These friends were influential business owners who spread the shop's reputation in the city's business circles. Within 6 months, Thompson Motors was busier than before the rumors. Jessica had become the most respected mechanical engineer in the area, but the story wasn't over yet. One Monday morning, Jessica arrived at the shop and found Dave talking to a man she recognized immediately. It was Brian from Johnson's Auto Shop. Jessica, Dave said when he saw her. Glad you're here. Brian is asking for a job. Jessica looked at Brian in surprise. He seemed embarrassed. Hi, Jessica, he said. Can I talk to you privately? They stepped aside to a corner of the shop. What's going on, Brian? Mike fired me yesterday. Why? Because I questioned a job he wanted me to do. A customer brought in a car with transmission trouble. Mike told me to say it just needed an oil change, but I knew it needed a full repair. And you refused to lie? Exactly. Then he fired me in front of everyone, saying I was turning into you. Jessica wasn't sure whether to be offended or flattered by the comparison. How are things over there? Terrible. We've lost more than half our customers. Mike is desperate, cutting costs even more. No one can take it anymore. What about the other mechanics? Most want to leave, but are afraid they won't find work elsewhere. Mike spread the word that you don't hire people from there. That's a lie. I know. That's why I'm here. Jessica took Brian to talk to Dr. Thompson. After a half-hour conversation, he was hired. In the following weeks, other mechanics from Johnson's Auto Shop started showing up asking for jobs. Dr. Thompson couldn't hire all of them, but he referred them to other partner shops. Within 3 months, Mike had lost 10 of his 15 mechanics. Johnson's Auto Shop was practically running on just Mike and 4 inexperienced employees. Jessica found out about the situation through George, who kept in touch with his former co-workers. The shop is a mess, he told her. Mike's trying to handle the more complex jobs himself, but he doesn't have the skills. There have already been 3 serious customer complaints this month. And he doesn't try to hire new mechanics. He does, but the shop's reputation is so bad now that no one wants to work there. And he can't offer competitive wages because he's lost so many customers. Jessica felt a mix of satisfaction and pity. Mike was reaping what he sowed. but seeing anyone struggle didn't bring her complete joy. The situation reached its breaking point when Mike made a critical mistake. A customer brought in a Ford Fusion for brake pad replacement. Mike, trying to save time and money, reused pads that were at the wear limit instead of installing new ones. 3 days later, the customer got into an accident when the brakes failed on a downhill slope. Luckily, no one was seriously hurt, but the Ford Fusion hit a tree and was totaled. The technical inspection confirmed the accident was caused by brake failure, and the report pointed to negligence in the service. Mike was sued, and the shop was fined by the Consumer Protection Agency. The news spread quickly through town, the kind of scandal that could destroy any business's reputation. The Wednesday after the accident, Jessica was working when Amanda, the receptionist, came to get her. "Jessica, there's a man here asking to speak with you, says it's urgent." Jessica went to the reception area and was shocked to see Mike waiting for her. He looked like he'd aged 10 years in just a few months, thinner with deep bags under his eyes and a defeated expression. "Mike, what are you doing here?" "Jessica, I need to talk to you." She hesitated. After everything that had happened, she wasn't sure she wanted to speak with him. "Fine, but we'll talk right here in the reception area." "Jessica, I came to apologize." The words caught her completely off guard. "What do you mean?" "For everything I did to you, for how I treated you, you didn't deserve that." Jessica crossed her arms, still wary. "Why are you doing this now, Mike?" "Because I've lost everything. The shop's going under, I'm being sued, my reputation is ruined. And I know it's all my own fault." "It is." "I always knew you were skilled. From day one I could tell you knew cars, but I was scared." "Scared of what?" "Scared of being exposed. I never had formal training, Jessica. Everything I know about mechanics I learned from my dad the hard way. When you showed up with so much knowledge, I felt threatened." Jessica studied him in silence. For the first time, Mike was being honest with her. "So you decided to humiliate me to feel superior?" "Exactly. And it was the worst decision of my life." "Mike, you didn't just humiliate me. You humiliated all the employees. You cheated customers. You turned the shop into a toxic place. I know, and now I'm paying for it. What do you want from me?" "I was wondering if you could talk to Dr. Thompson, ask him to stop boycotting me." Jessica was confused. "Boycotting? Dr. Thompson never boycotted you. But all the customers are coming here, because here they get quality service and are treated with respect, not because Dr. Thompson is campaigning against you." Mike lowered his head. "I thought, well, after everything that happened, Mike, Dr. Thompson doesn't even think about you. He's too busy running an honest business." The words were harsh, but Jessica felt they needed to be said. "Jessica, I know I have no right to ask this, but could you give me a chance?" "A chance for what?" "To work here as a mechanic. I'll take any salary." Jessica could hardly believe what she was hearing. "You're asking me for a job?" "I am. I know it's ironic, but I have nowhere else to go. No auto shop will hire me after what happened." "Mike, you made my life hell for 2 years. You humiliated me, insulted me, threatened me, and now you want my help?" "I know I don't deserve it, but I'm desperate." Jessica looked at the man who had been her tormentor for so long. It was strange seeing him in a position of vulnerability, asking her for help. "Even if I wanted to help you, do you think Dr. Thompson would hire someone who spread rumors about his shop?" "But it was you who," Mike started to say, then stopped. "You're right. I destroyed my own chances here. Mike, you need to understand something. The consequences you're facing aren't because of revenge from me or Dr. Thompson. They're the result of your own actions. I know that now. And another thing. Even if I had the power to help you, you wouldn't be welcome on a team with people you hurt. George is here. Brian, too. Do you think they'd accept working with you after everything?" Mike was silent for a long moment. "You're right. I was an idiot." "You were. But there's still time for you to start over somewhere else with a different attitude." "How?" "No one will give me a chance after what happened." Jessica thought for a moment. Despite everything Mike had done to her, she couldn't take full pleasure in his misfortune. "Do you have family?" I have an ex-wife and 2 kids in another city. They haven't spoken to me in 3 years. Why? Because I always put work and money above everything else. I was a terrible husband and father, just like I was a terrible boss. Mike, have you ever thought about leaving here? Starting fresh somewhere else? How? I don't even have enough money to pay off the shop's debts. Sell whatever you can, pay what you owe, and go after your family. Apologize to them like you're apologizing to me. Try to be a better father to your kids. But what about work? Get a simple job anywhere, as an employee, not a boss. Learn to be humble, and maybe one day you'll rebuild your life. Mike looked at her with an expression Jessica had never seen before, gratitude mixed with regret. Jessica, thank you for saying that. Maybe it's really what I need to do. It's the only sensible thing you can do. And Jessica, I know it doesn't mean much now, but you're a far better person than I ever was. I'm sorry it took me so long to see that. Jessica nodded. Mike, I forgive you. Not for your actions, because they were terrible, but I forgive you because holding on to bitterness would only hurt me. Thank you. Now go and try to rebuild your life the right way. Mike left the shop with his head down. Jessica never heard from him again, but George told her months later that he had sold Johnson's auto shop, paid off his debts, and moved to Colorado, where his ex-wife lived with their kids. 2 years later, Jessica had established herself as one of the best mechanical engineers in the region. Thompson Motors had become a benchmark for complex diagnostics, and she had specialized in automotive electronic systems. Dr. Thompson offered her a partnership in the company, recognizing her fundamental contribution to the business's growth. Jessica accepted and became a minority partner, with a share in the profits and an active voice in strategic decisions. Mrs. Barbara, fully recovered from her surgery and proud of her daughter, had gone back to working as a seamstress, but now for pleasure, not out of necessity. They had managed to buy a larger, more comfortable home in a better neighborhood. Jessica had also met someone special, Christopher, a civil engineer who frequented the auto shop to take care of the construction company's cars where he worked. They started dating and were planning to get married the following year. One Friday afternoon, Jessica was reviewing reports when Amanda came to let her know she had a visitor. It was a young woman in her early 20s, clearly nervous. "Are you Jessica Miller?" the girl asked. "Yes, how can I help you?" "My name is Megan. I work as a cleaner at an auto shop nearby, and I wanted to talk to you." Jessica invited Megan to sit in her office. "What can I do for you, Megan?" "Well, I heard your story, how you were a cleaner and became an engineer, and I also have an engineering degree." Jessica felt a sense of déjà vu. "Tell me your story." Megan explained that she had graduated with a degree in electrical engineering 2 years prior, but couldn't find a job in the field. She took a cleaning job at an auto shop to pay the bills while still sending out resumes. "And how's the treatment there?" "Terrible. The mechanics humiliate me every day. The boss says women aren't cut out for working with cars." Jessica knew that feeling all too well. "Megan, have you ever tried showing your knowledge?" "Just once. I identified a problem in an electrical system they couldn't fix, but the boss said it was luck and forbade me from giving any more input." "And are you interested in working with automotive electrical systems?" "Yes, it's my specialization." Jessica smiled. She had been needing an assistant to handle the more complex electronic diagnostics. "Megan, how about you take a test here?" "Really? Really? We have a few cars with electrical issues that have been giving the team headaches. If you can diagnose the problems, I'll talk to Dr. Thompson about a position." "Jessica, I don't know how to thank you." "No need to thank me. I know what it's like to be in your shoes." Megan took the tests the following week and performed exceptionally well. Dr. Thompson hired her immediately, impressed by her knowledge of automotive electronic systems. "Jessica," he said after hiring her, "you have a special talent for spotting capable people." "It's not talent, Dr. Thompson, it's empathy. I recognize those being underestimated because I've been there." Megan adapted quickly to the team and became a valuable addition to the auto shop. Jessica became her mentor, teaching her everything about automotive diagnostics and how to navigate a predominantly male work environment. 6 months later, Thompson Motors had earned a reputation as the most innovative shop in the region, with a technical team that included 2 female engineers, something unheard of in the local automotive industry. Jessica often reflected on the irony of the situation. The 15 mechanics who had called her a failure had ended up contributing to her becoming the most respected professional in the field. If they hadn't humiliated her, maybe she never would have found the motivation to restart her career. One Monday morning, Jessica was arriving at the shop when she spotted a familiar car parked out front, Dr. Richard's silver Mercedes. He was talking to Dr. Thompson near the entrance. "Jessica." "Doctor," Richard called when he saw her. "So good to see you." "Good morning, Dr. Richard. How are you?" "Very well, thank you, and eternally grateful to you." "Why?" "You saved my life that day, remember? If I had driven with that brake leak..." Jessica shook her head. "You've thanked me plenty of times, Doctor. No need anymore." "I do need to, and I have a proposal for you." "What kind of proposal?" Dr. Richard looked at Dr. Thompson, who was smiling mysteriously. "Jessica," said Dr. Thompson, "Richard here is the president of the city's business association. He wants to invite you to give a talk at the next meeting." "A talk? About what?" "About your professional journey," said Dr. Richard. "Your story is inspiring. A woman who overcame prejudice and hardships to become one of the best in her field." "I'm not sure I'm the right person for that." "You're the perfect person," insisted Dr. Richard. "Many people need to hear that it's possible to start over, that it's never too late to chase your dreams." Jessica thought about the proposal. 3 years ago, she was a cleaning lady, humiliated and disrespected. Now she was being invited to speak to business owners. The transformation felt surreal. "All right," she finally said. "I accept." The talk was scheduled for the first Thursday of the following month. Jessica spent weeks preparing what she would say, reflecting on her journey and the lessons she'd learned. On the night of the talk, the Chamber of Commerce auditorium was packed. There were business owners, professionals, and college students. Jessica stepped onto the stage nervous, but determined to tell her story. "Good evening, everyone," she began. 3 years ago, I was a 30-year-old cleaning lady who mopped the floors of an auto shop. The mechanics called me a failure and said I had no ambition. The audience fell silent, curious to hear what came next. They were right about one thing. I was failing, not because I lacked skill or dreams, but because I had stopped believing in myself. Jessica told her whole story: her engineering degree, the struggle to find work, the years as a cleaning lady, the daily humiliations, the moment she decided to fight back. "What I learned on this journey," she said, "is that the biggest obstacle to success isn't external circumstances. It's what we believe about ourselves." She spoke about the importance of not letting others define our worth, the courage needed to start over, and how adversity can become opportunity. "For 2 years, I hid behind the role of a cleaning lady because I was afraid to try and fail again. But when I finally had the courage to show who I really was, I found people were waiting to give me a chance." The talk lasted 40 minutes. When Jessica finished, the audience erupted in applause. Many stood for a standing ovation. During the Q&A that followed, a young woman raised her hand. "Jessica, how did you forgive the people who humiliated you?" "By forgiving, I freed myself from the past," Jessica replied. "Holding on to bitterness would only hold me back. And in a way, those humiliations gave me the motivation I needed to change my life." An older businessman asked another question. "Do you think your story would have been different if you'd revealed your qualifications from the start?" "Maybe. But I don't think I would have been ready to handle the challenges of being a female engineer in a male-dominated field. My years as a cleaning lady taught me humility and resilience. Those qualities are just as important as technical knowledge." After the talk, many approached Jessica to speak with her. Students discouraged about their careers, professionals who'd faced similar struggles, business owners interested in her services. One woman in her 60s was especially moving. "Jessica," she said with tears in her eyes, "thank you for showing it's never too late to start over. I was laid off at 55 and thought my professional life was over. Your story gave me hope. Ma'am, what's your name? Diane. Diane, if you have experience and the willingness to work, your age is an advantage, not a disadvantage. You have knowledge and maturity that younger people don't. Do you really believe that? I do, and if you need help starting over, you can come to me. Diane left the talk visibly moved and hopeful. In the following months, Jessica received several offers to repeat the talk in other cities. She accepted some, always with the goal of inspiring people going through struggles similar to those she had faced. Jessica's story spread through the region and even reached the local media. A business magazine featured her in a cover story titled "The Engineer Who Swept Away Prejudice." "It's strange being seen as an example," she commented to Christopher one evening over dinner. "I just did what I thought needed to be done." "That's exactly what makes your story inspiring," he replied. "You didn't play the victim, you didn't give up, you didn't hold grudges. You turned a negative situation into something positive. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't found that leak in the Mercedes. You would have found another moment to prove your skills. People like you always find a way to shine." Jessica smiled. Christopher always knew what to say to make her feel special. "And you know what's the most ironic part?" she said. "What?" "If the mechanics hadn't humiliated me so much, maybe I never would have had the courage to change. In a way, they did me a favor." "What kind of favor?" "They showed me I had two choices: accept being seen as inferior forever or prove them wrong. I chose the second option." 2 months before the wedding, Jessica got an unexpected call. It was George. "Jessica, do you remember Tyler, one of the younger mechanics at Johnson's auto shop?" "I do. What about him?" "He came to me. He's been unemployed for 6 months and asked me to talk to you." "Tyler was one of the ones who humiliated me the most, George." "I know, but he's changed a lot. Went through some tough times and learned humility." "What kind of tough times?" "His wife left him because of his aggressive behavior. He lost custody of his kids. He's in therapy now, trying to rebuild himself as a person." Jessica stayed silent, thinking. "Is he a skilled mechanic?" "Yes. Always been good, technically. The problem was his attitude." "And you think he's really changed?" "I do. He apologized to me for a lot of things he did in the past. Seemed sincere." Jessica sighed. "George, I'll think about it. But if I give him a chance, you'll be responsible for making sure he behaves properly." "I guarantee it. And he'll have to apologize to me personally. Not just to me, but to the whole team. I'll talk to him." A week later, Tyler showed up at the shop. Jessica met him in her office. He was visibly ashamed and remorseful. "Jessica, I came to apologize for what I did to you at Johnson's auto shop." "Go on." "I was an idiot. Thought humiliating you made me superior. But what happened in my life showed me how it feels to be on the other side." "What happened?" "I lost everything. Job, family, home. And it was all because of my arrogance and lack of respect for people." "And you think you've changed?" "I'm trying to. Going to therapy, trying to be a better person. I know I can't undo what I did, but I want the chance to prove I can be different." Jessica studied him for a long moment. "Tyler, I'll give you a chance, but with conditions. Any conditions. First, you'll work as an assistant for 6 months at a reduced salary. If you prove you've changed, then you become a full mechanic. I accept. Second, any sign of disrespect toward any employee, especially the women on the team, and you're fired on the spot. Understood. Third, you'll participate in an interpersonal relationship training program that I'll organize. No problem. And fourth, if I find out you're bad-mouthing this auto shop, or me anywhere, you'll never land a decent job in any town again. Got it? I understand perfectly." Tyler started working the following Monday. Jessica observed him discreetly during the first few weeks. He really did seem to have changed. He was respectful to everyone, worked hard, and didn't cause any trouble. Megan, who had been hired a few months earlier, was initially wary. "Jessica, are you sure about this guy?" "I'm not sure about anything, but I believe people can change if they really want to." And if he goes back to how he was before, then he's gone, just like that. Tyler proved he had truly changed. During his 6-month probation period, he was an exemplary employee. Jessica promoted him to a full mechanic, and he became one of the most reliable members of the team. A year later, when Jessica was organizing a shop get-together, Tyler approached her. "Jessica, can I talk to you?" "Of course. I wanted to thank you for giving me a second chance. You earned that chance with your work." "No, you don't understand. If you hadn't hired me, I probably would have given up on everything. I was even thinking about, well, doing something stupid." Jessica realized the gravity of what he was saying. "Tyler, were you thinking about hurting yourself?" "I was. I thought I was worthless, that I'd never be able to rebuild my life. And now I have hope. I'm able to see my kids again, maybe even win back my ex-wife. And it all started when you gave me a chance." Jessica felt her eyes well up. "Tyler, you're the one who proved you deserved that chance. But you were the only person who believed I could change. Because I know what it's like to be in a desperate situation, and I believe everyone deserves a second chance." At that moment, Jessica realized her journey had come full circle. She hadn't just overcome humiliation and rebuilt her career, she had become someone capable of helping others do the same. End of story. Now, tell me what you thought of this story and where you're following us from. Do you believe Jessica made the right decision by forgiving and giving second chances? Leave your honest opinion in the comments. Thank you so much for being here. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other heartwarming stories like this one.